I'm Siobhan from the STVO digital team, and welcome to Maddie's Masterclass on sprints. Give us a wave, Maddie. This is part of STVO's training series on lean and agile working methodologies developed by our digital development officer, Maddie Stark. And I'll hand over now to Maddie. Thank you.
Thank you, Siobhan. You're getting more and more practiced at that as the days go by. It's kind of like I was going to say on a plane. Who remembers the last time they were on an aeroplane? And this is you're here and you're here, doing incredibly well. It's great to see everybody coming from all kinds of places. The weather's much of a muchness across the country by the looks of it, to be fair. There's a lot of wet, dreich, the odd splattering of snow, but very interesting. Great to hear from so many different people and to see so many faces. I'm seeing lots of faces that I know, so it's great to see so many people. What we're going to do, so over the next probably about half an hour, 40 minutes, I've got some kind of information on this first class, which is on sprints. I will say that a lot of the information you're going to get has come out of this book, if you can see it. This is a book that Ross McCulloch from Third Sector Lab recommends to our senior leaders. So I think some of you, Kirsty, I'm seeing you may have seen this already. There may be a few of you who have seen this already. And this is something that Ross talks about and that we talk about in the senior leader program, as it's that idea about if you've got, as it's called, how to solve big problems and test ideas in 5 days. I think that's quite a claim from this book, to be fair. I think that's quite a claim. However, if you read the book and it works for you, let me know. That would be great, because I think it's a good idea. However, there's lots of really useful information, and I tend to use it in bits like a recipe book. I don't read the whole thing. I dip in and out and kind of get information from it. So that's where we've got a lot of the information from. And there'll also be, when you get the slides, there'll be links in the slides as well. So everything that I'm kind of talking about, you should be able to go back and find out more information. It's only 45 minutes. So, please understand it's a really high level introduction to what this is. This is also knowledge and information that I have gathered over the last 6 years of working within this sector, speaking to other people from the tech sector and the software sector, and then also kind of my background with behaviour change and managing organisational change with cultures and leadership as well. So that idea is that whole big picture of looking and putting everything together and how we can use this in the charitable sector specifically. So what it is that we can do and how we can make this work for us. So I will start sharing screen. This is always the bit where it doesn't matter how many times we use Zoom, it never fails to confound me. Is that the right word? Now I've got rid of that. Hang on. I can't, I've now lost my mouse. There we go. Double check you can all see that. Yep, thumbs up, good. Thank you, thanks. It's always a good start if you can see it. So this is just the initials we said. So this is also part of a series of 4 that started off with or series of 5, if you like. It started off with our lightning into lean and agile. And then we're going to look at sprints, stand-ups, retrospectives. I can't remember the 4th. I'm sure Siobhan will remember. So we'll put that list up later. But the idea is that you can do them as one, you can dip in and out, or you can do them as a set. It's entirely up to you how you choose to do them. And these are a test for ourselves. So we're running these as 45 minutes and on a Friday, just to see what people are getting out of them, what they're doing. So it's also a bit of user research from our own point of view, so selfishly. So there will be a short survey that comes out. So please do be as honest and as, give us as much feedback as you can for us to kind of build that better service and make sure that we're hitting the mark for you. So this one, we're going to talk about sprints. And I've made a new, people who've been doing a lot of stuff with me will have seen my scale of 1 to cat. So I've changed it. I'm a big fan of Captain Kirk. I'm a massive William Shatner fan. So I've whipped up a very short icebreaker on William Shatner and GIF. So we're going to do that in a second. Then we're going to look at sprints, a kind of a high level, what are they? So some kind of definition, how we can use them. So how it might be useful for us to use them, when it might be useful for us in the voluntary sector to use them, some of the tools. Now, most of these tools you may well have already used already or be using, and then just some top tips around it. And then I'm going to give some examples again of SCVO, of what did and didn't work. So some of this as well will just be a bit more in depth of what we talked about in the Lean and Agile, if folk were on that as well. So using your chat box on your scale of 1 to Captain Kirk is to think about, looking at these, which one of these best describes how you are today? So thinking of this morning, which one of these best describes where are your thoughts this morning? What are your feelings at? It's Friday. I've already been up, done a session in a conference. Good to see. Oh, we're getting quite a few threes. Oh, I think it's just because it's Friday. Oh, these are great. Two. Loving these. A lot of threes, a lot of twos. A lot of threes, lots of twos. Francesca, you were a 1. Jenny, 4 sums up your day so far. I had tech issues this morning, Jenny, and I was inputting into a kind of a global conference. I was like, oh my God, this is not a good start. Oh, 2, technically your day off. Oh, Lucy, good to see you. Good to see you. Technically your day off, yeah. So 45 minutes to make it easier, 3. Thank you very much. So getting a good day. So mainly 2s and 3s, which is great. I think. I'm going to go for yes, that's a good thing, I think.
I think it is, and I'm loving your new scale, Maddie, and especially that it's videos, not just static cats.
We'll see. So really, this is just a quick descriptor of what we were talking about last time. So just to remind folks, so when we're talking about Agile, or when I'm certainly talking about it, it's understanding that it's a way of describing planning and doing work in which is understood that making changes as they are needed is an important part of the job. So it's that thing about, it's not change for change's sake, it's actually making change because those changes are needed, and those changes will have an important and positive impact on what it is that's going on. So it is back to that, it's not change for change's sake, it's actually there's a purpose to this change, there's a reason that we're going to do this change. And it's that idea that it's the ability to create and respond to change. And also that it's a way of dealing with and ultimately succeeding in a turbulent environment. And we're all kind of in a turbulent environment right now. So hence another reason for kind of taking on this mindset. The other big part of working in this way, and particularly within sprints, is this idea of, we were saying it's constant iteration. So that's the masterclasses that we're going to look at. So sprint, stand-ups, testing, which was the other one I couldn't remember, and retrospectives. And these are all part of that Agile process, which is a huge topic. And there will be Agile purists out there who will see what I'm doing, and they will probably feel very sick by how I am squishing this and making it malleable and kind of changing it so that to make it work for us in our sector, as opposed to a piece of software and developing something and then pushing that out as a product. We're talking about services, we're talking about people. So it isn't that kind of smooth line, things will jump about. So it's about how we can use this for our own benefit. And then back to that idea about, this is again, I always find this for me is a good reminder, a good visual about constant iteration. It's not kind of going straight to the car. It's actually thinking about, well, what's the minimum we need to fix this problem? What is the minimum we need to succeed to make this service the best service it can be? And in order to do that, it's thinking about, well, what is it that's there? And that's about, if we can provide the best service we can for the people who are out there by simply making a small change, then that's really good for them. The more complicated it becomes, then perhaps it's not going to meet the needs of the people who are using our service. So actually making these small iterative changes leading up to something that is what people want, as opposed to starting with our idea or our version of what we think people need. So thinking about sprints, so what are they? So it's all of this is, it's a project management tool. It's nothing different. Some of us will have used Gantt charts, some of us will have used various other things. It's just simply a project management tool. And it's, as we said, it's come from the tech background, so it's come from software development. And it is that idea that it's based on what are called short time-boxed periods. I love the phrase time box because it's just simply a way of saying time bound. It's like, for me, it sounds really like, oh, I'm putting something in a time box. It just means you've got a start and a finish. But it's a great way of saying it. It's like, well, that's nothing new. Well, apparently it is. It's a time box, so therefore it's amazing. and just actually putting limits around stuff and making things work very differently. Sprints themselves are usually about 5 to 10 days, and it's about what work can be completed in those 5 to 10 days. And effectively, sprints make projects more manageable because they allow teams to actually produce kind of high quality work faster and more frequently, because you're working in these time-boxed, these time-bound periods in these short sets of time. Then you're able to actually think, okay, what's needed? What can we do? How can we change? And they're based on, as we said, on iteration, so making these small incremental changes in short periods. So it's that idea that you can break down big complex projects into bite-sized pieces. So that's the idea around the book, is, you know, how to solve big problems in 5 days, is because it allows you to chunk down and actually make things much more manageable. So we've not got this idea of, this is the end, this is what we need to produce right now. We need to produce a fully formed service or a fully formed project. Actually, if we get this bit right just now at the start, then we can continue to make it grow. And that way it's kind of a more organic, more of a synergy growing, and more collaborative with the people who are using the service, as opposed to, we've got this idea, we think this will work, here's a fully formed service. It's actually taking it right back to, what's the minimum that we need? What can we do? So actually thinking about sprints and how to use them, for us, this is, as I said, sprints seem, from a lot of the work that's out there and how we've used them within SCVO, it's very much that idea that it is a collaborative event where teams answer 2 basic questions. So what work can get done in this sprint, and how will the chosen work get done? So what work can we actually do? So what can we physically do in our time-boxed period of work? What is achievable? And then actually deciding how we're going to prioritize the work that's there. So again, it's back to that being a basic project management tool. So we've got our period of time, we've got our 5 days, and we're saying, like, what can we physically do in this time? And actually, what are we going to do? And how are we going to get that done? Again, part of this is around self-organizing teams. So this is very much that idea around having the right people at the right time to do the right job. I think if you were in the Lean and Agile one, that was about knowing your animal. So it is about that idea about what skills do we need of people at the right time. And then also having a big collaboration. So it isn't one person, it isn't a manager that comes in and says, right, this week we're going to look at this, this and this. It's everybody actually sitting down and going, do you know what, it would be really great if we started at this point. It could be, we might start in the middle of a project, or we might start at the end, and actually think about, do we work backwards? Where do we actually make our starting point? And doing that where everybody's equal and there is no one person who is there to say, this is what we're going to do, this is how we're going to do it. So it's very much collaborative, and it's very much done on an equal playing field. One of the key things around this is actually having a clear vision of what you want to achieve. So that idea that we know what the problem is. So we're very much looking back at, what is the problem? What is it that we think we need to solve? And having that idea about being user-led. So we are looking very much at understanding what the problem is and what are we going to do about it, and actually working with the people who use the service to come up with some of those ideas about what we're going to work with in the sprint. And then defining your done, which we'd mentioned. So this is defining your done is really essential to sprints. This is knowing when, as a team, you've actually done something, when it's completed. If you're working in these really short time frame pieces of work, you all have to understand and agree at when something is completed, at when something is actually done. If you've got different ideas and different ways of working and different understandings of what finished means, then you could get to the point where actually in your 5 days, your 10 days, nothing is finished, because you could have somebody who is continually saying, well, we still haven't finished this, we still haven't done that, we still haven't got to this point. Or you could get somebody who thinks that they've done all of their work, but actually they haven't even started. So it's making sure that everybody understands and has a definition of, we are done when this happens, we are done when that happens. Kanban boards are basically this one here is a very basic Kanban board, and it's an agile project management tool that's designed to help visualize work. So it's that way where you can see it. There's lots of different tools that you can use for this. And the importance about this particular way of working and working in sprints is the ability to physically move something from to do, doing, and done, so that in our heads we are able to actually see it. So it moves stuff from what's in the back of our head, because we can physically see something, to the front of our head. So it helps us to actually understand and to process what's happening. So Kanban boards are really kind of really, what's that word I'm trying to think of, where you can't, doing sprints without a Kanban board doesn't work, is what I'm saying. So it's something that has to be part of what you're doing. And this to do, doing, and done is the simplest way of going about it. There are lots of really fancy Kanban boards out there. Amazon do really good examples of things that fill whole rooms and whole walls. They are effectively post-it notes on a wall that people shift about. And that's all it is. So sometimes I've seen things and I've gone, oh my God, I don't possibly understand that. And it's just basically that. It's a flip chart with post-it notes, and that's all that they are. They're used, so you can have cards, you can have columns, and they're also used for continuous improvement. And this is around actually looking at what's going around. So if something keeps moving from to do to doing, to do to doing, and it never gets done, then that helps identify a problem. So why is it never done? Is it because the definition of done isn't right? Is it because actually the to do isn't right? Or is the doing, do we need to break it down more? Have we not broken it down into small enough chunks? Have we got too many chunks that we've now made it unmanageable in the 5 and 10 days? So that's always worth thinking about when you're looking at working with this, is if you keep seeing something that's shifting back and forth between the to do and the to doing, the to do and the doing, there's a problem, there's an issue there. And that is really key to understanding about working in sprints. If it keeps coming back and keeps coming back, it's like, okay, let's stop. Let's actually work on this one thing in this sprint. So in this sprint, we're going to work on this thing that is moving continually between these two. And that can then help with blockers and help shift on to actually realize, well, what is it that we're talking about? Do we need to break it down? So for sprints around where to use them, when to use them. I think I spoke about this where we did earlier in Agile, was that when we used them in our team, it didn't work. And I'll kind of talk about this a bit more, because we didn't have a clear project vision. Between you and I and Zoom, we literally didn't know what we were doing for about 3 weeks. So it didn't, when it kind of the whole pandemic hit, so it didn't work. They just didn't work for us, because sprints are a project management tool. So you need to know what the project vision is. You need to know what it is you're attempting to achieve. You have to have a clear understanding of what the problem is. What is the problem? What I think the problem is, what Siobhan thinks the problem is, what our manager thinks the problem is, that's 3 different problems. So what actually is the problem? And that goes back to the defining your done. So what is the problem, and how will you know when that problem is solved? Now, it is that kind of understanding that you will have you've got your clear vision at the top, and then underneath you might have lots of different problems. You might have, okay, so we've got this problem, this problem, this problem. And then that's where you start to use the sprints to go, right, we're going to do a 5-day sprint on this problem. Let's start now. Then from that, let's do another 5-day sprint. Where's the next problem? 5-day sprint. So part of the sprints will help uncover some of what those problems are as well. So you need to start with that really clear vision of what the project is and what the project is attempting to achieve. And then from that, actually starting to understand what the problem is. Sprints are usually done at the start of a project. That's the kind of the key thing around them. They can be done partway through. So if you've already started a project and you're using a different project management tool and it's not working, you could think, right, let's shift to sprints. But sometimes that can be a bit clunky and a bit painful for everybody. So it's bearing that in mind if that's something that you're going to do. But also they're particularly they work well for new projects and right at the start. So see, if you're thinking about, okay, I'm going to try this tomorrow, I've got a project that actually we're all a bit stuck and we're all kind of banging our heads against a brick wall, it could be worth giving it a shot and saying, right, we're going to try a completely different approach. Let's try something new. Let's give it a go. And it is that idea as well about, because they're these time boxed short periods of time and it's small iterations, it is understanding that it is in itself a test, and actually introducing it from, we're going to give this a shot. Let's see if this works for the next 5 days. Let's see if we can get some kind of actions or achievements within the next 10 days, however we're choosing to work it. Oh, my keys have stopped working. So some of the key things about sprints is that they are very much in collaboration. So you do it as a whole team. So you may have 5 people working on this. So you will have your, what in Agile terms would be a Scrum Master, but that's the whole, people get massive qualifications to become that. So you may have your project manager like we did in Team Evolution. So that person has overall responsibility with any project, reporting to funders, whoever, that kind of person. But in order to actually define what work are we doing, what work have we done, and what does our done, what does that mean? That's the part that's collaborative. So everybody has a full understanding of what these things mean, and everybody is really clear about what the project aim is, what the project vision is, and what some of the project problems are. Self-organizing teams as well. So people are not allocated work. People go, okay, that's my area of skill. I'm going to work on this. That's my area of skill. You're better at that than me. So again, back to Siobhan and I, Siobhan is much better at detail than me. So I wouldn't then say, right, I'm going to spend ages putting a spreadsheet together. Also, spreadsheets make me feel sick. So it's that kind of idea around, what are my skills? What are Siobhan's skills? I'm not going to pretend I'm really good at making videos. So let's not give that job to me. Let's give that to somebody else. And it's that kind of level of honesty about understanding what we are good at and actually what somebody else is good at, and being able to share that. And as I said, actually having that definition of right at the start of your project, defining how you're going to know when you're finished, how you're going to know and understand what success looks like. So some of the tools are, you may be using these already. Please do let me know if you are. So Trello itself, which most of us are now using and has been around for a very, very long time. Trello was built before, I always want to call them Alsatian, Atlassian they're now called, I think. Just reminds me of a dog, Alsatian. So before they became the big firm that they now are, Trello is that very, very basic Kanban board. That's what it was, to do, doing and done. That's the idea, was you had your movable card and your movable post-it notes, and that's very much what it was set up for and what it was designed for. So it is, in effect, certainly from our point of view, it's kind of one of the first ones that was there to help work with that idea of moving things around and working in that sprint method. Some of you will have used Miro as well. Miro now have a new product called Miro Lite. These link from the slides, these will link into these. So again, you might have used these. Miro is like a massive, if any of you've ever used Prezi, it's kind of quite similar to that. It always makes me do this, Miro. You can move it about and add on all kinds of stuff, pictures, post-it notes, drawings, all kinds of things. But you need to log in or register to kind of be able to use all the functions. Whereas Miro Lite, you can just click on it and then everybody can use it. So they've got a kind of a newer version of that, which actually is for those folks who kind of don't necessarily want people to sign up or to log in as a guest, then it's much easier to use. Google Jamboards are the other ones that we've used a lot. Very, very similar to Miro Lite, I suppose, or Miro. It's the idea that you've got these sheets that you can move between these whiteboards that keep moving along, and you can change them and you can add things to them. And then there is Mural, which is a mixture of Miro and Google Jamboards. For me, Mural is one of the better tools that's out there, but it's pricey, it costs, and that's the kind of the thing for us. You can get a kind of a free account to test it, but then after that, it then looks, it wants you to go and pay for it. Again, it's that way around. If you test it and it's amazing and it works for you, then it probably is worth investing in it. But it's always, check out what other tools are there. Other tools are available. These are the ones that we are coming across. And of course, even in good old Zoom, it's possible, you can use the Zoom whiteboards function. We've used those before as well. For sprints, you can split up your whiteboards into what's the doing, the done, and the to do, or you can have a different whiteboard for each one. So you can use Zoom as well for all these different things. So thinking about what happens, so Team Evolution, as I said, sprints did not work for us. And this was very much because within our team, I think as we said before, we were a really, really new team, and we had been given funding to do a particular piece of work over a year and a half, which was around networking. It was around putting on face-to-face training courses that were overnight in residentials. It's about getting particular sectors or particular parts of the sector together to share experiences and to learn new skills effectively. One of the things we were looking at was a 3-day, what we call an accelerator program for carer organisations. So that was getting together staff who work in care organisations together to look at digital evolution, to look at some of the challenges they were having and to understand how they could work through them. And when we got our money, we had our project plan. So we had our clear vision of the next year and a half. This is what we're going to do. Then the pandemic hit, and pretty much everything that we had on that project plan became irrelevant for a start. That was the first one. Almost impossible for us to get people together because all the people we'd had signed up were no longer interested because they were all having their own crisis, their services. They had their far, kind of bigger priorities than learning this. And also it was just that way of understanding that the face-to-face wasn't going to happen. It wasn't going to happen. So we had the kind of the irrelevance of what it was we were attempting to do, because overnight people got the message that digital was a necessity. And then also that idea around service design, that people didn't need that, again, that motivation to move their services online because they'd already done it. So our clear vision was absolutely thrown out the window. So for us, then kind of working in sprints to think about what are we going to do in the next 5 days, we didn't have a clear vision because we were getting lots of requests from organizations. How do we work Office Teams? How do we use Microsoft 365? Is Slack better? I want to know how to use Zoom. What's Zoom bombing? And things were coming at us left, right, and center. So we were then firefighting, going, okay, go here, try this, go speak to that person. So for us to actually work in a sprint, we didn't have a 5 days of this is what we're going to do over the next 5 days, because every day changed. So it became impossible for us to work. So we would start on the Monday with, we think this week we're going to talk about how to use Zoom. Then by the Tuesday morning, so we would do that at 9 o'clock, by the Tuesday morning, we then had 30 requests on Office Teams, and nobody was interested in Zoom. So we're like, okay, we're now going to have to do Teams. So we that ability to shift and change, sprints actually were not quick enough for us. They didn't work because we were moving too fast. We didn't have a clear vision of what we were attempting to do, and we didn't have a kind of a clear idea about what the problem was, because the problem was shifting every day and changing every day. And that was a real kind of key thing for us. As I said before, we were also a new team, so we actually had no idea, a real idea of people's skills and abilities. And we were in the middle of a pandemic, and we were all kind of quite fearful, but yet wanting to be enthusiastic. So there was a mix of confidence, fear, motivation, willingness to help, but then not piling it on other people, personal problems, all kinds of stuff going on. And it became impossible to work in that way. So we actually used, which one of the other masterclasses, retrospectives worked a lot better for us. The coronavirus hub, that was the key thing where sprints really worked well for them. We had a clear vision of what we wanted to do for the coronavirus hub. That was to get information out as quickly and as clearly as possible to the sector. It was to respond to what we were getting coming in on our information inquiries, what we were coming in for funding inquiries. People were wanting help with web development and some design. So we were getting very clear requests and themes coming in, things around pay, things around furlough. And that became very quickly a very clear project of what we needed to happen and where we wanted to go, and also what the problems were that people were facing, because they were then getting these themes over these time periods. So they were working in 5-day sprints, and they would start on the Monday, what's coming over the weekend, let's look at where we want to go, what can we achieve in the 5 days. We can update the website today with this information that we've got from the government. We can't update the website on this other information because we don't know if this is true. There was a lot of nonsense going around as well from people. So it was just that, actually taking the time. Who do we need? People are talking about funding today, so we need Chrissy, we need her to come in and talk about what requests she's getting. And that made a real difference, was the being able to do that self-organizing teams, people saying, it's not me this week, doesn't need to be me today. Actually, it's web design, it's Callum. Callum needs to do something with the website. Nope, we're hearing a lot of things around our governance. We've got governance issues. We've got 6 trustees who are all sick. We're supposed to have a board meeting. What does that mean? And then that would be our Tracy and Rhonda coming in, our governance experts, to talk about, okay, so we need to put this information up. We need to talk about this different thing. And that really, really worked well from them to be able to respond, because they had that clear vision of what they wanted to achieve and the way that they wanted to work. So from that then, just to kind of finish up, so sprints very much are a collaborative project management tool. So it's that choosing what to work on and working it together, and then having an agreed definition of what your done is. The manageable chunks, so breaking it down into manageable chunks. What can we actually achieve in the time box that we've set? Understanding what the problem is, and then having that clear vision of what that actually looks like. So what does success look like? So that's pretty much it in our 45 minutes. Just checking, have I got about 10 minutes left? If anybody wants to say anything, questions, any thoughts, let me stop sharing. So I can see you all. Happy for you to unmute if you want to have any questions or any thoughts, any kind of. No.
Hello.
Right. Yeah, sorry, Julie.
Sorry, hello there, Maddie. Thanks again for a really interesting and informative course. And I just wanted, you talked a bit about actually setting up the team and making sure that all the skills are needed at the right time, that people are doing the right jobs at the right time in that team. Will you be covering how the project manager deals with that, or who sets that up, how that is established, and what sort of tactics you take to make that work? I know last time you talked about knowing your animal, and that really helped me understand how to pull a team together if we move to this type of approach. And I just wondered what the role of the project manager is in these types of collaborative self-organizing teams, if any, and how's that different to like the waterfall type way of project managing?
So I think so I hadn't really thought about that, to be honest, Julie, but there's no reason why I can't kind of put on a separate 45 minutes around self-organising teams. I think for the way, for us, how we worked it was just the notion of actually understanding the different skills of each member of staff, and really appreciating who do we need to have in right now. So it wasn't just the fact that somebody's really good at maths or somebody's really good at writing a report. That was for us as a way of working, for the manager's point of view, was recognizing that they didn't have to do anything. Yes, there is that sole responsibility as the manager to report to funding, but actually the team themselves can then start to pick, which is what we did start to do very much, was say, okay, I've been allocated this task. I don't actually know how to do this. Whereas previously, before, I would have figured it out for myself and gone off and done it. Whereas this time I just said, no, I don't know how to do this, but Siobhan knows really well. So let's just give that to Siobhan and I'll take something else. From that aspect, won't necessarily go into any more depth in that, but I can, as I said, these masterclasses are a test for us. So I could put on another one around self-organizing teams, what that means and how you would do it. We just did it ourselves. We very much took charge. Our manager, John, both self-admit, there was so much going on at managerial level for the fires that they were having to fight, that we just decided, okay, we're going to do this ourselves. And we didn't actually realize that it was a thing until we started to do it. And then all of a sudden,
add a little to that, Maddie?
Yeah, go for it, yeah.
Yeah, so one of the things I think that really helped that process was having this Kanban board. So having that doing, done process. So I came in, the team knew each other a bit and didn't know me at all. And I wasn't quite sure what my role was going to be. I was obviously support, but how much support, how much do I do? So the Kanban board was really empowering, because then I was able to add my own you can add your own image onto the things that you want to do. So as a new member of staff, it's really empowering to be able to say, I like that, I'm good at that, I'm rubbish at that, I can't do that. And it gives you that confidence to be able to admit what you can and can't do. It also, with our main pieces of work were the DigiShift sessions. So once the session was delivered, everyone else's tendency was to say, right, that's done. But as my support role, there was still admin processes to do. So it also gave me that ability to say, no, actually, you've moved that into the done column too quickly. I still have a lot of work. And actually, so do you all. You need to speak to the podcast provider. You need to produce this material. You need to do that. So that helped with that kind of self-management and project management, in that we all took a bit more, not that we didn't take responsibility anyway before, but it just gave us that empowerment, that ability to speak out and not have to actually speak, just to move the card and message to say, yeah, I've moved this back, we're not done. Whereas in a face-to-face meeting, that can feel quite confrontational when you're a support staff. So that helps with that whole self-management and not the like top-down approach of traditional project management.
Yeah, and as we said, we didn't actually appreciate it was a thing until afterwards. We thought, oh, we have become a self-organizing team. And I think that happens quite a lot in our sectors, that we are doing a lot of these things already, but we don't necessarily know that it is part of something much bigger. I think that happens to us a lot of the time. There are a lot of us who are working in this way, or at least attempting to, but without actually having that knowledge that this is what we're doing, or that this is what it's called. And certainly from that point of view of thinking about funding and ways forward, putting these things in our funding bid, saying we're taking on this approach to the way that we work, it really does make a difference from that point of view, I think. I hope, Julie, that answered some of your questions.
Yes, I think it does, because it sort of takes away from thinking it's a thing you have to do and it's a massive shift. It's actually about democracy for me, and using a Trello board just says, look, this is, everyone can see what's going on. No one's left in the dark. There's not one leader who's telling you what to do. But I do think for a lot of charities, it's that cultural shift to feel able to do that, and not feel that that's weird. If only one person's on board with that, it's very hard when you're trying to change that culture into that way of working. And using Trello and Slack has really helped with that, I think, so that people aren't holding on to information to themselves and sharing and being, like you said, honest about where their skills are and what they want to do. And it also shows that they need to take responsibility for some things without being told what to do. And that's empowering for people anyway. So I just wanted to be sure I didn't have to follow some formula, but maybe I'm just being quite prescriptive around it anyway. But no, it's everything that kind of just naturally feels right and feels democratic and supportive for people to grow in the workplace, really. So
I'll put in some links in the slides, Julie, to it, because that's what we did. It's a case of we went off, we read up about it, and then we went, oh, we're doing this. So it's that typical third sector approach to who else, what are we doing, how do we do it, let's buy a book, let's Google it, let's figure it out. It's that problem solving approach. It was good. Have we got one last, I'm just aware of the time, I don't want to keep you because it is 45 minutes. Any more thoughts or questions before you let you get on with your Dreich Fridays? No. Anything else, please do get in touch. You can get in touch with me or Siobhan. We're always happy for your queries, your questions. If there's anything you'd like to see as a 45-minute masterclass, give us a shout. I'm happy to kind of speak to folk in a one-to-one aspect as well, even if it's just a sounding board for ideas that you've got. It's always good to see you. So thank you very much. Feedback's appreciated. And I'm going to go and have a cup of tea now because I've been doing this since 7:30 this morning. So I'll see you all later. Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you, Maddie. Thank you, everyone.